The cost of childcare is insane. Welcome to another episode of Achieving Minerva. I am Sal. Welcome back if you've been with us before. Today we're going to talk about the cost of childcare. If you're going to work, whether or not it's worth it to not work, and maybe just take care of your child at home. This is a major issue, especially in the United States. Childcare is not easy to come by, but today we're going to talk about what it costs. We're not necessarily going to talk about why or how to fix that whole system, but we're just going to talk about what it does cost, what maybe the pandemic might have done to the cost of that, and what we do here at the Minerva household. So most of my numbers are going to come from care.com. Care.com is basically social media for babysitters. If you are a family in need of childcare, you can go there to seek a nanny or perhaps a childcare employee or childcare center account to find care for your child in your area. If you are the person that wants to take care of other people's children, you can go there and make a profile, and it's basically LinkedIn for childcare jobs. But they have a article here that I found. They have numbers for the average weekly childcare rates in 2019, prior to the pandemic, and 2021, kind of in the middle of pandemic. And then we'll talk about a little bit of simple math that I did to kind of guess what 2022 did with the crazy inflation that's going on right now. I'll show you that aligns with current local numbers that I found for our area. So we're going to get into it. I'm going to link this article in the show notes. So if a lot of this doesn't make sense, please make sure you go read that article. I got all this data from care.com. But we're going to talk about infants first. Okay, we're going to start from birth. In 2019, prior to the pandemic, which started in 2020, for 1 week, one child costs $201 to send to daycare. Now, I did the math for you. For 52 weeks of the year, that's $10,452 it costs to send one infant, ages 0 to probably 1 or 2, to a daycare. In 2021, kind of in the middle of the pandemic, it moved up to $221 per week, or $11,492 for the year. Now, for 2022, we've seen a lot of these inflation numbers. A lot of them are like 8 or 9%. I use 7%, just a little bit of a conservative number. It might be even worse than these numbers. But in 2022, I took the 2021 number and multiplied it by 1.07. That's adding 7%. And I got $12,296. So that's up almost $1,000 from last year. For one infant, ages 0 to probably 1 or 2, that's going to daycare. For toddlers, they didn't actually give me a real age that they used for infants versus toddlers, but I'm guessing it's either 1 or 2, up to about 4 or 5 when you're going to send them to a public school program, either kindergarten, preschool, or something of that nature. But for toddlers it's a little more expensive because they're mobile. They require a little bit more attention, a little bit more interaction for the daycare staff. So they're a little more expensive. They're a little more labor intensive. Now, for one toddler to go to a daycare, they're calling it a child care center. In 2019, it's $215 for the week. Multiplied by 52, that's $11,180. 2021 was $226 or $11,752. Now in 2022, we're adding that 7%. It's about $12,574. Again, about $1,000 difference for the toddlers. That's one toddler going to a daycare. If you are not a big daycare proponent and you want to go the full nanny route, that's going to be almost double the cost. And generally that's because nanny is already more like one-on-one care for your children, or you might have one nanny for your 2 or 3 or 4 children. Nannies are a little bit higher quality, not necessarily because daycares are poor quality, but because they have those ratios of one adult to, say, 5 or 6 kids, and it's really hard to give certain attentions to those individual kids at that rate. Add to that all the burnout of the daycare workers and things like that. Most of the time, nannies are generally agreed upon to be a more higher quality childcare option. And the price reflects that. For one child in 2019, this also includes infants, it was roughly $565 per week for the nanny. That's paying the nanny $29,380. In 2021, that moved up to $36,088. In 2022, we're adding 7% for a nanny for just one child. Could be an infant, could be a toddler. It's going to be $38,975. But that's a lot for one family to have to pay one other person's whole salary for their child. Now, if you add a second child, you can basically count on about doubling all those numbers minus about 10%. Most places, daycare facilities, as well as nannies, individual nannies, they will offer 10% discounts per child after that. And that is not totally uncommon. Now, a lot of daycare facilities may also offer different discounts for military, first responders, teachers, and things like that. But in general, that looks like that's the national average, according to care.com in 2019 and 2021. The 2022 numbers are from me. I added 7% to the 2021 numbers. Now, this is where it got really shocking to me. When I think of daycare or a nanny, I'm thinking I'm going to work. I'm working a 9 to 5 or an 8 to 5, whatever you want to call it. I'm thinking I'm dropping my child off at 7:30. They're there for 8 hours, and I pick them up at 5:30. If you have staggered schedules between you and the other parent, perhaps it's a little bit different. But generally, the kids are going there all day, is how I'm picturing that working out. It's costing about $12,000 for the year, 40 hours per week, the same as a working job. But what got me was in this table, in this article on care.com, the after-school sitters were more expensive than the daycare. Now, there's different little parts that you can go with here to justify that. But remember, the after-school sitter, school ends at like 3:30 or 4:30, depending on where you live. Generally, 3:30 to 4:30, until the first parent gets home, which is, let's call it 6 o'clock. So let's call it 3 hours maximum, from 3 o'clock till 6 o'clock for an after-school sitter for 5 days out of the week. So that's only 15 hours. And the cost in 2021 for an after-school sitter was $261 for the week. So for the after-school sitter, that's only about 15 hours for the week. They're making $261 for the week. That's $13,572. That's more than for the toddler going all day, all 8 hours to the daycare. In 2022, adding the 7%, $14,522 for only 15 hours worth of work. Only 40% of the work that a 40-hour daycare is doing. The opposite end of that is that if you're paying for one after-school sitter for, say, you and your kids, or you and your neighbor's kids, only 4 kids. But anyway, that is a lot of money for those different things, and we considered all of that when we made our decision. Now, there are a lot of different kind of nuances to this. These are all just national averages. They're just taking all the data and dwindling it down to one number. And that's not always the full picture of your area. Your area might have a lot better options. Your area might have more religious options. Our area in particular, we have a lot of religious options that are probably more expensive than the national average and our local average. And they're also just not aligned with our personal values. But also the nanny market, if you want to go the nanny route, the nanny market might be slim in your area like it is in ours. The metro city areas are really big for nannies. There's a lot more people that are able to be nannies than there's a lot more people that can afford a nanny. Take that into account. We live in a little bit more rural area where nannies are hard to come by, and there's not a whole lot of people that would be able to afford a nanny should they become available anyways. Locally, average for daycare in our area, I called around, and the average was $235 per week, or $12,220. And if we go back to the 7% that I added to all those 2021 numbers, the national average for infants for the daycare option in 2022 was $12,296, and our actual real market, the average was $12,220. So pretty darn close to what I estimated with the 7%. So we opted to go the stay-at-home route. Now, there's a couple reasons for this. If you've listened before, you know that my job lets me be home for about 60% of the days out of the year. So I'm a full-time worker and also a part-time stay-at-home dad. And my wife, Amelia, is a full-time stay-at-home parent and homemaker. We like to call it domestic engineer because there's a lot more to it than meets the eye. But generally, we decided for her to quit her job for a multitude of reasons. Now, don't go thinking that this is like a 1950s situation where it's just a homemaker and dad comes home from work at 5 o'clock and then sits and watches TV. That's not exactly the operation we have. One of the reasons that we decided to go that route is financial. In 2021, Amelia's salary at her job, she brought home $18,664. Now, she contributed quite a bit to a 401k that was offered at that job, and then also the IRA and the HSA. So we do still have a little bit more of that as technically take home as far as financial independence is concerned. But what we got in our bank account to spend was only $18,624. And daycare is $12,220. That's 65% of her take-home pay from last year. So part of it was, is it really worth it to spend all that time at work and letting somebody else raise the child instead of us? We ultimately decided no. Part of it was she hated her job. Amelia hated her job. So that was a big part of it. She knew she didn't want to be there long term. And the other part of it is she has always wanted to be a mom to begin with. So this is definitely a totally her decision. This is not a 1950s situation. She wanted to be a stay-at-home mom if we could make it work. And so far we have. One of the other reasons that we wanted to not do the daycare option specifically, we definitely couldn't afford a nanny. So that was pretty much out of the question. So daycare was really the only other option. A main problem with that was the breastfeeding. We really wanted breastfeeding to give it a fair shot. And if it was going to work, it was the best shot at making that work was going to be at home. The two main reasons we wanted breastfeeding to work was A, physiologically best source of nutrition for the baby, and B, it's the cheapest and easiest way to travel. And not having to take bottles and formula and a bunch of extra paraphernalia around, even just to the grocery store, is kind of huge because all the nutrition is on tap for at least the first year-ish of life. If you can get that established. Not everybody can do that, and it's not always a choice that doesn't happen. So we're very fortunate that did happen, but we wanted to give it a fair shake, so daycare was kind of not a great option for us. The second reason that we really wanted to quit and not do the daycare option was because we wanted to go the cloth diaper route. We wanted to go the cloth diaper route, for climate change reasons. We did not want to add all those disposable diapers into the environment. We're very eco-friendly in our household. The other reason was finances. Diapers are not cheap. So we want to do diapers, cloth diapers, the reusable option. And eventually we'll probably do a breakdown on if that actually is financially the same or better or worse. We'll do some water calculations and some electric bill calculations and see how that lines up against disposable diapers. But a lot of daycares don't allow you to do cloth diapers because they don't want to deal with it. And some of them may not even be able to know how to deal with cloth diapers without a tutorial from you, the parents. That was the second reason we didn't want to do daycare. And then the third reason is we personally don't feel like it was the optimal care for our children. Amelia has a degree in education. She's been a nanny before, so she knows how to raise children, and she's always wanted to raise her own children. So here we are. Some alternatives to daycare or nannies is a lot of people have in-laws in town or locally-ish to help. We don't really have that. Both of our families live quite a bit away, and they can help here and there, but they are not really at least once a week type of situation for us. So It was either send our child somewhere or take care of them ourselves, and we chose to take care of them ourselves. The other big reason for Amelia to quit her job was another financial reason. One was daycare was going to be 65% of her take-home income, and we decided that was not worth it. The other thing was insurance. Health insurance is tied to your employer. That's just the way it is in the United States. So I'm going to lay out what all these scenarios were. Before we had our child, we each had our own health insurance. Amelia at her job, me at my job. At Amelia's job, she paid $50 a month for her healthcare premium out of her paycheck. And for an individual, her deductible was $3,000. She was on the high deductible health plan, the HDHP that gave her the HSA option. And her out-of-pocket maximum was $6,000 for just the individual. To add the child, that we didn't have quite yet, but to add the child, it was going to end up being $300 a month. But the deductible for the two people was going to be $6,000, and the out-of-pocket maximum was going to be $12,000. At my job, prior to the baby, I was paying nothing for my healthcare premium as long as I followed the wellness program incentive program that my employer has. As long as I followed that, it was nothing per month. And for the individual, the deductible was $1,500, half of what Amelia's was. And my out-of-pocket maximum was $3,000, also half of what Amelia's was. Now, to add a child, at the time, adding one child or adding two dependents or adding four dependents was all the same. It was all just a family. It was either individual or family. It was going to be $300 a month, the same as Amelia's. The deductible for a family was $3,000. Again, half of what Amelia's was, and the same as it was for her as the individual. And the out-of-pocket maximum was $5,000, which is more than half of what Amelia's was for her and the child, and less than her for the individual. So we opted for her to quit her job so she was eligible for my plan so that we could just have all three of us on there. That was not the primary reason for her quitting her job, but it definitely helped. She hated it. It wasn't financially necessary with income, and also the insurance just made it way more worth it. So now, once we hit $5,000, which we did with the birth of Junior, we did that quite easily. After $5,000, we go get our health care for free. Now, we don't have a baby every year, hopefully, but that has ended up being worth it so far because Junior has had some health issues in the new pay cycle, the new fiscal year. So that's actually been very beneficial now. But even in subsequent years, we still have the HSA option. And as a family, we still get to contribute the family maximum for the HSA, which is in 2021 was $7,200. And our deductibles and our out-of-pocket maximums are pretty low. So to kind of conclude as to us being a stay-at-home family, I work about 40% of the time, and I'm home 60% of the time. She is home all the time. She loves this job a lot more than she liked her other job, and she's really good at it. She has meals planned. She has meals planned tonight as well as a month in the future. Our freezer's full of prepared meals. She shops the deals. She has time to look through the coupons and shop the deals. We also have time to travel. If I take a day off, I get a lot of days off. The medical insurance calculation helped kind of put the icing on the cake. And we have futures to homeschool our children for a variety of reasons, and that's going to be a whole nother episode. Childcare is a huge hurdle for young families that want to have children. Childcare is not an easy cost to overcome, especially if you are money conscious. But we kind of made the not mathematical savvy decision to forego one whole income in order to stay at home, at least half of us. Now, if you go into the spreadsheets, having two incomes is more than likely better mathematically than one. We discussed that Amelia's take-home income was going to be taken 65% off because of childcare. That's still 35% that we would have gotten to take home. So mathematically, it makes more sense that we take that 35% and invest it. But there's a little bit more to it than just the math, right? That's what this whole podcast is about, is it's not just math. We also wanted a high quality education and environment for our children, and this is what we've decided is best for us, and we were able to do it. If you have more specific questions about our specific situation or childcare in general, please feel free to email us at achievingminerva@gmail.com. Engage with us on Twitter. We're at MinervaFire. And make sure you share and subscribe to this podcast. We are on Apple, Google, iHeartRadio, Spotify, all your major podcast platforms. Please tell your friends. Also come visit us at achievingminerva.com.